Hi folks. Well, we've got an issue with the Allis that has to be dealt with. I've started to have some problems with overheating while I was brush hogging over the last few weeks. Now this is the first time in 5 years I've had this issue, and I've done some heavy duty brush hogging in some very hot weather in the past and didn't have that problem before. So I would just kind of let the tractor cool down and then start up again, slow down a little bit if I had to, mow in low gear possibly, or take it as slow as I could, take a half cut through the heavy stuff, whatever. Still wasn't working the way it should have, but I was limping along with it. Well, the other day I was going to mow the meadow and I took a few cuts around it. Now the grass was mowed 2 weeks ago there, so it wasn't real high. And I was in second gear, which is typically where I mow unless the grass is too high. And it started to overheat again. And in fact, I suddenly had this explosion of steam, this cloud of steam come from the front. So I turned the tractor off, let it sit for 2 or 3 hours, and then I started up again and got it back here in the barn. I managed to do that. So I was trying to figure out what was going on. You know, this is something that's not typical, obviously. I checked the hoses were fine. This is before, when I first started having the overheating. Hoses were fine. I really couldn't see that there was a leak in the radiator anywhere. The steam that was coming out seemed to be coming out the overflow, and I'm not sure what was what. But this last time, after I put it in here for a day or so and it got cold, I went to open the radiator cap, and when I did, I realized this. The solder weld for the filler neck here on the top of the radiator completely released. So this is the only thing that's holding this in place is the filler tube on the side that goes down through. It completely opened up, so the whole top of the radiator was open. I guess that's where the shower of steam came from when it released, when the weld or the solder, whatever it was, released, and just everything came flying out. So what I need to do is completely tear the front of the tractor apart to get at the radiator, get the radiator out, get it to a radiator shop, see if they can re-weld that. I'll have them look at it, see if there's any other problem as well on it. One of the things that some of the guys on the Allis websites, the blogs, told me was, because I threw that out to them, before I knew about the neck being broken, what was going on. And one of the things they said is, from all the the debris coming into the front of the radiator, the dust, the seeds, the plant matter, it's probably clogged up the fins, so the air can't pass through to cool the coolant in the radiator fins. It overheats. Well, I started from the back, and you can see some of the stuff on the floor there, using my air compressor and air jet to try to blow it out, and a lot of stuff did come out. It looks like there's still a lot more in there. I think once I get the radiator out, that I can get at it better. I'll see if there's a lot more. Maybe that was my only problem, and then just eventually the constant overheating just weakened the weld. I don't know. I'm going to have to find out. But it's another repair job for the Allis, so, and I can't just let it sit because I'm going to need it. I've got to keep brush hogging or the weeds will get too high, and fortunately most of the garden work is done with it. I don't need it really for any kind of plowing or other garden work, but come wintertime I'm going to need it for scraping snow, so I've got to get it fixed, and we'll see what happens. Maybe if you're watching this video you have some other ideas for me, but my son knows a decent radiator shop. He said they're not too expensive. The cost to replace this radiator on this 1958 D14, I think All States Ag Parts had new ones listed at $469. I could be wrong, and that was well over $400. They also had used ones listed, when they have them, for like $270, $280, something like that. And they said on the site, we may not have them in stock, so we may have to rebuild your core. So I'm looking at a major expense, even if I went used on this. Maybe a radiator repair shop can do the repair cheaper and easier than if I tried to replace it. In either case, I've got to tear things apart to get the radiator out. Whether I put this one back in fixed or put a different one in, same thing. So we'll see what happens, and I'll come back to you. I don't know how the next part, when the next part of this video will be done. It'll be after I get the radiator repaired, unless I find something else interesting or unusual in there. But I'll come back to you with a resolution, I hope. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting our channel. Please like and subscribe and hit the notifications bell. All right, we'll come. Okay, first step here was to get the front sheet metal of the tractor, basically the nose of the tractor, off to be able to get at the radiator. As you can see, I've done that. Of course, being as old as this is, everything was rusted. I had to use a lot of WD-40 on the nuts and bolts. There's the pile of what I took off to be able to get that off. There's a number of bolts that were in there. 3/4, 9/16, 1/2 inch. I'm trying to think what other sockets I used. There was one over here. On here there were 2 screws, screw head, slotted head bolts with nuts behind them instead of a regular bolt. So that was tough because they were rusted to try to turn the screw head. But as you can see, I'm down to the radiator. I believe, get a better look here at this damage that happened here, how this solder broke. Again, I don't know if that was why it was overheating or just because the overheating had so much pressure it popped it. I don't know. There's the overflow tube on the side. That's, you can see it's soldered right there to the radiator. I see 2 bolts here. I don't know where else the radiator's. Looks like there are 2 bolts in the back there. I've got to be able to get down in there. Here's the hose at the top. I've loosened the clamp. I haven't pulled it off yet. But that should pretty much pull it out. I don't think I need to. This sheet metal on here is, I think that was soldered there too, and it's long since come off. Yeah, it looks like it was soldered at one time. You can see it there. It's long since come off. I don't know if I'll take that to the shop or not. It's just extra shielding. I don't think it has any other function, but again, I'm in uncharted territory here. I've never done this before, so we'll see how it goes, but that's my problem. And as you can see, yes, there's a lot of plant matter in here. Maybe that was just something that I should have been doing. Maybe at the end of every mowing season I should have blew it out, or even over the winter time when I'm not using it, blew everything out for the spring. I just never gave it a thought. I mean, we had a Farmall Super C growing up that I mowed all kinds of fields with, not with a brush hog, but with a sickle bar mower. But I also used it to rake hay and haul hay wagons and stuff, and never had to worry about that radiator, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right, that was the next part. When I get the radiator off, I'll show you. Thanks for watching. All right, we have the radiator just about loose. You can see I have it just kind of hanging here. It was just the 2 bolts here on the front that were right down in here. And then I took the hose off the top, and it's just being held on by the bottom hose there. I opened the drain valve to let the antifreeze that was in the radiator and the tractor drain out, so that would be all clear before I tried to pull it out, and I made a mess all over the floor. You can see I've got about, I don't know, maybe a quart or 2 in the bucket there in the bottom, so I'm going to let that drip a little bit. So all I have to do is take that those clamps off, if you can see them right there, on the lower hose, and then I can pull the radiator free. Pretty scuzzy in here from oil and antifreeze leaks over the years, and then you get the dirt and the dust and everything else. It kind of becomes this, I don't know, grungy mess. So looks like my belt there is a little loose too. I'll have to take a look at that before I put everything back together. The belt looks like it was changed out within a few years. I mean, I have this 5 years now, I guess 6 years now. So I haven't changed it, but it looks like it was fairly new before then. So one of the things the guys online said to solve the overheating problem with the Allis, is a problem I never had until now, was some of the guys were replacing these 4-blade fans that were original equipment for the D14s, and they actually put a 5-blade fan on that was designed for the D15, and that of course circulated more air more quickly, more powerfully, so it kept the fins cooler. So I don't know if I'm going to need to do that or not, but that was just one of the options that one of the guys on the forum said. So all right, well, I'll come back to the next. Okay, the radiator's off. I'm going to try to do some blowing out with my air compressor and a couple different jets to see how we do as far as getting junk out from between the fins. If this doesn't work, I'll have to try some high pressure water, maybe like a pressure washer. Some clogging going on. Alright, let me try my other nozzle on here, see if that makes any difference. So one-handed, hang on. Okay, sorry about that. Alright. There's a lot of dust coming out, a lot of debris. Thought I'd try the air first because it's a whole lot easier to hook up than a pressure washer. I still got more work to do, so I'll come back to you later. Oh, I got the camera lens. Good. Well, it's been about 3 or 4 weeks since the last part of this video was shot. I did take this radiator to a radiator shop to see what they could do with it, to see if it was fixable. And basically the guy had it for about 2 weeks, sent it back and said that the core was too rusted out, too rotted out for him to bother with. Now he did resolder the neck here. Remember I said that that was popped off. You saw that. But the guy put it back on so he could pressure test it, and then he claimed it was just. Now whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. My son looked at it. He said it might not be as bad as the guy said. Maybe the guy just didn't want to mess with it. It was too small of a project for him to deal with. So what he suggested to me was try to test it myself to see if there are any obvious leaks. Now, his suggestion was just plug both of these holes, your upper and lower hose connections onto the radiator, and then fill it and put the cap on and see if it leaks. Now, my issue was, how do I find something to seal that off with? Well, I was looking for one of those black rubber stoppers like you used to use in science class to plug up beakers. Couldn't find any of those anywhere. I thought maybe somebody had them, but I couldn't. So what I ended up getting was a few of these rubber drain plugs, and they just barely fit in there like that. I can push it in, I think, tight enough. Now I can't put a whole lot of pressure on this to test it, obviously, or that'll just pop out, but I'm not worried about that. I just want to see if there are any gross leaks that just gravity will push the water out of the tubes, or if along the bottom or what have you. So I still don't know whether or not this is shot as a radiator and I have to get another one, or if I can make do with this one. If I can make do with this one, I don't want to spend the money for another one, obviously. So I will come back to you when we get some results. I'm sorry this is dragging out so long. Believe you me, I'm not happy that my tractor's been down for a month. So we will come back and let you know how it goes. Well, the radiator saga continues. So as my son suggested, we're going to try to see if this leaks. I did find 2 rubber plugs there to seal off both the upper and the lower holes for the radiator, and I've already done this, so I know what the outcome is going to be, but I'll show you folks. Here's what we're dealing with. So as you can see, the core is shot. Do it one more time. Well, it turns out to be a worst case scenario. I'm just going to have to get a new radiator. There's no sense sending this core back to Allstates and having them trying to do a repair job on it. It's not going to happen. At any rate, 63 years, I guess I can't complain too much. And if you notice here, now that it's been cleaned up, you can still see the orange paint on the tubes and the fins. That I did not do that either, unless somebody else spray painted it since it was originally new. That's there from that many years too. Not bad. So I will conclude this series on the radiator with this, and I'll figure out what I need to do. If I have to get a new one, when and if I can afford that, I will go for it and then get my Allis back online. I haven't been able to mow my fields in a good 6 weeks, and that's not good. All right, thank you folks for watching through this frustrating time, but with old equipment you run into this. So please subscribe if you haven't, and continue to follow us as we talk about what it's like living out here in the country, but doing it on a shoestring.